Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at the cognitive explanations of depression, which you need to know for AQA A-level psychology in the subtopic of psychopathology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Cognitive explanations of depression focus on how mental processes affect behavior and are based on the assumption that depression is the result of disturbance in thinking and the consequence of negative faulty and maladaptive biases in thinking. Cognitive explanations suggest that these thoughts can be managed by challenging this faulty thinking. There are two cognitive explanations of depression: Ellis ABC model and Beck's negative triad. Ellis's 1957-1962 ABC model. Ellis, 1957-1962, proposed the ABC model, which suggests that depression occurs as a result of irrational thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. Ellis believed that everyone holds a unique set of assumptions or beliefs about themselves and their environment that guide them through life and determine their reactions to the various situations. Some people have masturbatory thought processes, which causes them to impose unrealistic demands and expectations on oneself or others. This sets them up to fail and guides them to irrationally interpret events and act and react in ways that are inappropriate and prejudice their chances of happiness and success, as such high expectations inevitably lead to disappointment with extreme feelings leading to depression. The model proposes that an activating adversity or event, A, in the environment triggers an irrational, or rational, or unrealistic negative belief, B, or thoughts about why the situation occurred, e.g. masturbation, utopianism, which then causes a consequence, C, in the form of an unhealthy emotion, feeling or behavior about the belief, e.g. anxiety, depression. In the case of depression, a person may be given a poor evaluation of their work, activating event. This may then trigger a person to irrationally believe that they are a complete failure and will never succeed, belief, which then may cause a person to never put effort into their work again and feel unhealthy emotions, such as worthlessness, consequence. These unhealthy emotional feelings of worthlessness result in depression. A strength of the Ellis ABC model as a cognitive explanation of depression is that there is research to support. Alloy et al., 1999, used a sample of non-depressed college freshmen with no other diagnosed disorders. Half of the sample had a history of clinical depression, the other half did not. The students with a history of clinical depression demonstrated no symptoms at the beginning of the study. To begin, the students were given a test to measure their cognitive style. The students were identified as either high risk, HR, or low risk, LR, for depression based on their thinking patterns. The researchers carried out follow-up assessments every 6 weeks for 2.5 years and then every 4 months for an additional 3 years. The study was based on a combination of questionnaires and structured interviews to identify stressful life events, cognitive style, and symptoms of depression. After 6 years, the researchers that cognitively high-risk patients, negative group, had a 17% lifetime prevalence than low-risk patients, positive group, who had only 1% lifetime prevalence of major depression. The results show that the participants in the high-risk group were more likely to show symptoms of depression. This is a strength because it suggests that cognitive styles and thought patterns significantly influence the risk of developing depression. A limitation of the Ellis ABC model as a cognitive explanation of depression is that it only describes and explains reactive depression and not endogenous depression. The explanation focuses on reactive depression, which arises in response to external events or stressors. Endogenous depression is characterized by a lack of external triggers and often has a biological or genetic basis. This is not adequately explained by this model, as endogenous depression may arise from internal factors such as neurotransmitter imbalances or genetic predispositions, which the ABC model does not account for. This is a limitation because it suggests that depression is solely a reaction to external events, neglecting the role of internal factors such as biology and genetics in the development of endogenous depression. A limitation of the Ellis ABC model as a cognitive explanation of depression is that negative cognitions can be a more accurate view of the world. Depressive realism is a psychological hypothesis suggesting that people with depression may have a more accurate perception of reality compared to non-depressed individuals. This concept posits that those who are depressed might see the world and their circumstances more clearly, while others may hold overly optimistic or biased views. The theory challenges the common belief that positive thinking is always beneficial. For example, individuals with depression may have a more realistic understanding of their limitations and the challenges they face, which can lead to a more grounded perspective on life situations. This is a limitation because it suggests that individuals with depression may have a more accurate view of their circumstances, which challenges the idea that cognitive distortions are solely responsible for their negative feelings. Beck's, 1976, Negative Triad. Beck, 1976, proposed the negative triad, which suggests that depression is characterized by a negative triad of spontaneous beliefs about the self, the world, and the future, which interact with negative schemas and cognitive biases to produce depressive thinking. Negative schemas are a deeply held set of beliefs and assumptions that develop in childhood, often through traumatic events, e.g. parental or peer rejection or torment, and provide a person with a negative framework for viewing events in their lives and future negatively and pessimistically. Beck predicted that in depression, latent, e.g. dormant, negative schemas that have been formed in childhood become activated by life events or ongoing stressors. In adulthood, these become cognitive biases, which are systematic errors in thinking that affect the decisions and judgments that people make and distort thought processes, causing people to focus on the negative aspects of a situation and ignore the positives. These biases cause faulty information processing, which includes overgeneralization, where an individual makes broad conclusions based on a single event or limited evidence; catastrophizing, where an individual anticipates the worst possible outcome in a situation, often blowing the potential consequences out of proportion; magnification, where an individual exaggerates the importance of negative events or mistakes while downplaying positive experiences or achievements; selective perception, when individuals focus on certain aspects of a situation while ignoring others; and absolutist thinking, also known as black and white thinking, where individuals see situations in extreme terms, with no middle ground or shades of gray. Those with depression may have low self-esteem and view themselves as helpless, worthless, and inadequate, e.g. nobody loves me. They may view the world in an unrealistically negative and defeatist way and see the world as posing obstacles that can't be handled, e.g. the world is an unfair place. They may view the future as hopeless because their worthlessness will prevent their situation from improving, e.g. I will always be a failure. A strength of Beck's negative triad as a cognitive explanation of depression is that there is research to support. Grazioli and Terry, 2000, found that pregnant women who judged to be high in cognitive vulnerability were more likely to suffer from postnatal depression compared to those without that specific diathesis. This means that the cognitive approach could be used to identify vulnerabilities in people and trigger interventions to delay or prevent the progress of depression. On top of this, Clark and Beck, 1999, found cognitive vulnerability factors could be seen before depression develops, suggesting that Beck may be right about negative cognitions causing depression, in some cases. This is a strength because it suggests that identifying cognitive vulnerabilities can lead to early interventions, potentially preventing the onset of depression. A strength of Beck's negative triad as a cognitive explanation of depression is that there is research to support the idea that negative thinking can be involved in the development of depression. Lewinsohn et al., 2001, measured negative thinking in non-depressed adolescents. 1 year later, the life events of participants over the previous 12 months were assessed, as also whether they were suffering from depression. They found that those who had experienced many negative life events had an increased likelihood of developing depression only if they were initially high in negative attitudes. This is a strength because it suggests that negative beliefs are a risk factor for developing depression when exposed to stressful life events. A limitation of Beck's negative triad as a cognitive explanation of depression is that not all episodes of depression have an activating event. Beck's model doesn't account for cases where individuals experience depression without any clear trigger. This can be particularly relevant in situations where depression arises due to biological factors, such as genetic predispositions or neurochemical imbalances, rather than cognitive distortions linked to specific events. Additionally, some people may have a more chronic form of depression that doesn't follow the typical pattern of being linked to identifiable stressors or activating events. This is a limitation because it suggests that Beck's negative triad may oversimplify the causes of depression by attributing it primarily to cognitive distortions linked to specific events. Cognitive explanations of depression have several strengths and limitations. A strength of cognitive explanations of depression is that there is research to support them. Burri et al., 2001, found that patients with depression were more likely to misinterpret information negatively and therefore had a cognitive bias, ALEVEL model, and feel hopeless about their future, Beck's negative triad. This is a strength because it suggests that cognitive biases, such as those identified in Burri et al.'s research, can significantly influence how individuals with depression perceive their experiences and future. A strength of the cognitive explanations of depression is that it has practical applications to therapies. Cognitive explanations have been used to develop effective treatments for depression. These treatments include cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that focuses on the relationship between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and aims to help individuals identify and challenge negative thought patterns and beliefs that contribute to their emotional distress. CBT operates on the premise that our thoughts influence our emotions and behaviors. By changing maladaptive thinking, individuals can alter their emotional responses and behaviors, leading to improved mental health. This is a strength because it suggests that cognitive explanations provide a clear framework for developing effective interventions like CBT. By understanding how thoughts influence emotions and behaviors, therapists can create targeted strategies to help individuals challenge and change their negative thought patterns, ultimately leading to better mental health outcomes. This practical application reinforces the relevance of cognitive theories in addressing depression effectively. A strength of cognitive explanations of depression is that they acknowledge the role of thoughts in behavior and disorders. This perspective posits that negative thought patterns, such as cognitive distortions, can lead to feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, which are central to the experience of depression. By focusing on how individuals interpret their experiences and the meanings they assign to events, cognitive theories provide a framework for understanding the internal processes that contribute to depressive symptoms. This is a strength because it suggests that by addressing and restructuring negative thought patterns, individuals can actively change their emotional responses and behaviors. A limitation of cognitive explanations of depression is that a cause and effect relationship cannot be established. Ellis' ABC model of depression and Beck's negative triad assume a causal link between cognitions and depression and are supported by research that uses correlational data to conclude their findings. This does not determine the precise role of cognitive processes or explain the origins of irrational thoughts. It is not clear whether negative, irrational thoughts cause depression, or whether a person's depression leads to a negative mindset. There could be other factors, e.g. genes and neurotransmitters, that cause depression, and one of the side effects of depression are negative, irrational thoughts. This is a limitation because it suggests that cognitive models may oversimplify the complexities of depression by failing to account for the bidirectional relationship between thoughts and mood. A limitation of cognitive explanations of depression is that there are alternative explanations. Biological explanations of depression suggests that depression is a biological condition caused by genes and neurotransmitters. Research by Zhong et al., 2005, found low levels of the neurotransmitter, serotonin, in patients with depression. In addition, drug therapies, including SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which increase the level of serotonin, are found to be effective in the treatment of depression. This is a limitation because it suggests that cognitive explanations of depression may not fully account for the complexity of the disorder. This narrow focus could lead to incomplete treatment approaches that do not address all underlying causes of depression, ultimately limiting the effectiveness of therapeutic interventions. A limitation of cognitive explanations of depression is that they do not explain the links between anger and depression. While cognitive theories focus primarily on negative thought patterns and beliefs, they often overlook the emotional interplay between different feelings, such as how unresolved anger can contribute to depressive symptoms. For example, individuals who experience anger may internalize these feelings, leading to self-blame or guilt, which can exacerbate depressive states. This relationship suggests that anger is not just a separate emotional experience but can be intertwined with feelings of sadness and hopelessness. This is a limitation because it suggests that cognitive explanations failure to account for emotional complexities and may provide an incomplete understanding of depression, limiting their effectiveness in addressing all aspects of the disorder. A limitation of cognitive explanations of depression is that they do not account for the manic phases seen in bipolar I and II disorders. Bipolar disorder is characterized by alternating episodes of depression and mania, which involves elevated mood, increased energy, and often impulsive behavior. Cognitive models do not adequately explain the mechanisms behind these manic episodes. This lack of explanation can be problematic for individuals with bipolar disorder, as treatment approaches that focus solely on cognitive aspects may not address the full spectrum of their condition. Moreover, the presence of manic phases suggests that biological and physiological factors may play a significant role in the disorder, indicating that a more integrative approach that combines cognitive, biological, and social perspectives would be beneficial for understanding and treating bipolar disorder effectively. This is a limitation because it suggests that cognitive explanations may be insufficient in capturing the complexity of bipolar disorder. By not addressing the manic phases, these models overlook critical aspects of the condition that could inform treatment. This gap indicates a need for a more comprehensive understanding that integrates cognitive, biological, and social factors to effectively address the full range of symptoms experienced by individuals with bipolar disorder. A limitation of cognitive explanations of depression is that there is a better, more inclusive and explanatory explanation that includes biological and psychological factors. The diathesis stress model of depression suggests that some people inherit a genetic vulnerability to develop depression, however this only occurs when triggered by an environmental stressor. This is a limitation because it suggests that the cognitive explanations of depression may overlook the complex interplay between biological predispositions and environmental factors, leading to a less comprehensive understanding of the disorder. A limitation of cognitive explanations of depression is that it blames the patient for their disorder rather than situational factors. This perspective can lead to feelings of guilt or shame for individuals suffering from depression, as they may feel responsible for their negative and irrational thoughts and emotions. By focusing primarily on cognitive processes, these explanations may overlook the significant impact of external circumstances, such as stressful life events, trauma, or ongoing social issues, which can contribute to the onset and persistence of depression. This blame can be detrimental, as it may prevent individuals from seeking help or recognizing that their condition is influenced by a combination of factors, including biological and environmental elements. It also may cause therapists to overlook other environmental factors, which may have triggered their disorder when treating a patient with depression. This is a limitation because it suggests that cognitive explanations may oversimplify the complexities of depression by placing undue responsibility on the individual. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.